From the Homestead Studios in Santa Clarita, California, this is a Headache Soul production. Welcome to Just the Tip-Sters, America's favorite true crime podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Morgan. With me today is my handsome and talented co-host, the Hammer of Witches.
The Hammer of Witches.
Yes, it's a very famous book.
Oh, okay.
And it's about how men can discern a woman's a witch and then crucify her.
Men can discern that a woman is a witch.
Yeah, and then put her to death.
Okay. Oh, this is like an instruction manual?
Yes.
Like how to
like
do it?
16th century.
Okay.
It's actually maybe even earlier than that because it's got an actual Latin title that was translated to the Hammer of Witches, like Malefilis, blah, 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 something, 2 M's.
Okay.
I'm just not good at Latin.
Sure.
So you're the Hammer of Witches.
The Hammer of Witches. Well, I know
you hammer the fuck out of me. So yeah, I feel like that's a really good.
That sounded super sexual.
No. I guess it did. What I meant is you get on my nerves.
Sure.
And annoy me like a hammer. I didn't actually. I need to erase. Now I'm putting out all sorts of shit and you're just getting more and more weird emails and messages from cougars.
So
what I meant was he's annoying ladies.
Yeah. Okay.
And I'm a witch and he hammers me.
I think I want to get a copy of this book so I can discern all the witches. And then hammer them. Yes,
in the way you like.
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually like it gives you the rules on how to decide if a woman's a witch, and it's like 3 different things. Like she has to have, like, I don't know if it's like a man vouch that she's a witch. Then she has to have help from the devil, and then she has to have the permission of God.
Oh,
isn't that fascinating?
Huh. Okay.
So I found out about this because I never heard of it from my beloved Paul Giamatti's Shinwag.
Oh, okay.
And, it's like the thing he and Stephen Asma taught. They were just like super weirdos.
Okay.
And Paul Giamatti is an encyclopedia of bizarre in his own brain.
Okay.
He knows shit. I mean, he talked about this book. He can pronounce the Latin title. I mean, he's a phenomenal, like if he ever decided to use his powers for evil instead of good, he could fucking take over the world.
Dude, okay.
I am convinced. So, yeah, I just thought the Hammer of Witches was a good name for you.
Okay.
All your nicknames for the next couple of weeks are going to be very kind of otherworldly.
Right.
I'm just warning you.
Okay.
All right. So, Hammer of Witches, not involving sex,
right?
But annoyance and prosecution of female witches, and then
and then putting them to death.
Yes.
Okay.
Which is perfect for the episode we're going to be talking about.
Okay.
But I have a couple other things to mention before then. My apologies to poor sweet Lisa, Tipster Lisa, who, when I began apparently the episode talking about working at Kenner Toys and people fucking each other, panicked, and I'm sure she felt her ass slam shut because her beloved aunt worked there. And she was worried. She's like, please don't say my aunt's name. Please don't say my aunt's name. No. And she said she didn't even know what department her aunt worked in. But I was like, your aunt was not on the watch list. Your aunt's name. I know. That was what I get for naming names, right. And I'm not that person. I usually don't. I told you, like, before that episode started, I'm like, look, I don't fucking care. I'm like drained and depleted. And it's like I've taken truth serum and I'm naming everybody's fucking name right now. Perfect. So yeah, no, Lisa, you're good. Your auntie was not fucking around. I think she was more worried. Right. I don't think her aunt worked in the marketing department, but but it's a unique name. I'm not saying it. No. And it's a unique name, and it was not one of the people.
Yeah. We don't need confirmation.
No.
Other messages. Yeah.
Yeah. I remember that.
I remember her.
Yeah.
She was great.
Yeah. Her jaw unhinged like a snake.
Oh no.
Yeah, no, poor Lisa. I can only imagine you're listening to an episode of a true crime podcast and you're like, oh no, she's naming names. And she even said, I'm not even sure she worked there the same time you did. I don't know the years. I mean, it's your aunt, but still it was just, I was like, oh shit, maybe I shouldn't have named names.
Yeah.
So that's the first.
I think I'm weird because I know way too many stories about my aunt.
Oh, well, it's because your family's, closer.
My family's demented.
Okay, demented. I was trying to be kind and say closer, and you classify it probably correctly, demented. So the next thing is this lovely message from Tipster Miranda, who says on her platform, which might be Spotify, I love you too, but sometimes Joshua's reactions and goldfish memory make me think it's good. He's pretty.
Oh my God, thank you. Oh, thank you, Miranda.
I got that late last night, and I'm like, I cannot wait to tell Joshua that Miranda has his number. You are Dory the goldfish, but thank goodness you're pretty. So,
okay.
Yeah.
That's fair.
That's fair. It is fair.
Oh, man.
It's totally fair. She's got your number. Okay, so the other exciting thing, and I have to ask the tipsters for good thoughts, is that in a week or so, I start a new chapter in my life. And I hesitated mentioning it because I just am not convinced it's going to be what I thought it was going to be, and that I'm going to be good at it, and then I'm going to stick with it. And it's not like I'm a commitment phobe. My word is my bond.
Absolutely.
If I say I'm going to do something, I fucking show up, sometimes to my own detriment, sometimes because I'm a people pleaser, but I'm wanting this to work. But I'm just, because the process to get signed up, to get registered, and to get supplies has been, I shared with Joshua the things they suggested for this class, and it was like, is this the Little House on the Prairie, motherfuckers? So I am starting to take classes at the end of February for a new program, a new certificate program at my local community college, College of the Canyons, and it is to be a crime analyst. Or as my beloved Joshua calls me, a crime analyst.
Crime analyst,
yeah, because he is him. And then he wonders why I call him the fucking hammer of witches. But anyway, it's a crime analyst to the rest of the free world,
sure,
who isn't Joshua and is not a 12-year-old boy in a grown-ass man's body. And it's a 9-month program. And when it was first kind of explained to me, it was going to be 4 months. And I was like, I can do anything for 4 months.
Sure.
But this is going to be through most of the year of 2024. And it's not like it's full time. It's like classes are on weekends and evenings, I'm sure, because a lot of the instructors are, working professionals. But it is definitely, going to be an investment. And when I say investment, I don't mean financial, because it is so, kind of generous and supported by the state. The only thing I have to pay for are my books, but these fucking books are going to kill me. So the first I'm signed up for 4 of like the 10 classes, because I don't know where the other ones have not shown up. I don't know if they can't find instructors, or I don't know what the deal. But so I'm signed up for 4 of them, 2 at the beginning and then 2 sort of at the end, like 102, 104, 106, 108. So I'm missing all the other shit in the middle and the beginning and the end. So I got an email from the college saying my two of my books were at the bookstore, and I show up in the pouring rain. I don't know if any of you have been watching, because it's so ridiculous the way the news portrays the rain here, like we're all dying and we've all had to learn how to build an ark.
Stormwatch 2024.
It's just been, I've had people from all over the country be like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, why? I've had to wear something with a hood so my hair doesn't get wet. Yeah. Yeah. I do have to say, Sunday was particularly egregious, and I broke 2 umbrellas that ended up being inverted, because the wind is the thing that's been, the rain is like, it was been pretty intrusive, but the wind made it like the wind was crazy. Sunday was nutter butter. And before I actually talk about the class and do this, I do have to say, shout out to Luke McGarry, one of my favorite cartoonists, who did a live pop-up, live in person pop-up at a Sunday fun day at a little bookstore in Echo Park called A Good Used Bookstore, I think it's called. And
nice.
You walk in and it smells like an old used bookstore with like, kind of hard scrabble wood floors, and interesting owners who insisted on taking a picture of me holding up my book that was about criminals. But I bought Luke's book too. And if you have Instagram and you need to laugh or a smile, Luke is this funny, dark, young, handsome, skinny, LGBTQ British dude with dyed blonde hair, who's also like He's very much a throwback to the 1990s, like the Pet Shop Boys.
Oh, okay.
He's a DJ and he has a pretty voice. He sings, and these fucking cartoons are so funny. And
yeah, you sent him to me, and I was cracking up a while.
I love him so much. I love him so much. And to think I got to meet him in person, and I would just have to tell you, he was so kind. I think I sent Joshua the picture where I'm crying.
Yep.
I'm like, eyes full of tears. I'll start crying. He was so kind when I told him how he made me laugh through losing my husband. He was so sweet. And I started crying. And I said, "Oh, I'm going to go into the bathroom." The door was open. I'm like, "I'm going to get a tissue." I didn't bring any, which was probably stupid. And he reaches in his pocket of his really cool coat and he pulls out like a rumpled tissue. Aww. And he goes, "This is fresh. I promise I haven't used it." And I go, "I don't even care if you have. Sweet. It's better if you've used it." And he laughed really hard. Aww. So he gives me a tissue and I'm like wiping my tears. And I said, "Can I have a picture with you?" And he said, "Of course." And he came around the table that he was signing his books and took a picture with me. And I bought his book, which is fucking hilarious, called Keep It Down Up There. It's about living in any kind of situation where you've had to share walls.
Oh, okay.
It's fucking hilarious. And he signed it for me beautifully and did a little drawing of himself signing his book, which is hilarious.
Yes.
And I said, "So how much is it?" And he said, "Well, for you, it's 15. And I'm like, "Is it normally 10 for other people?" And he started laughing. Nice. And he's just adorable and kind. Anyway, but I ruined 2 umbrellas in a very short period of time on Sunday because of the wind.
I'm not sure how that connects, but okay.
I had a point.
Okay.
But it was anyway. So it's been there's been a whole lot going on, but I'm going to unbox my book. Joshua's right here to prove that it's so. I go to the bookstore and they only have one of my 2 books, and I'm in the pouring rain, and everyone there is so sweet. That's why I can't get really angry, because I want to get really angry because they sent me, an email saying 2 of your books are ready and there's only one, and this motherfucking $64, and it's a paperback book called Profiling Violent Crimes: An Investigative Tool. It's the used version. I don't even know how much anyway, at least it's in good shape.
Yeah, it looks good.
Yeah.
Nobody's
oh, fuck. What's the first thing I open up to? A picture of Sigmund Freud. Well, this is obviously a bullshit book. Uh-oh. So anyway.
Is it bullshit?
If there's a picture of Carl Jung, I'd be down. But anyway, so here I'm wrestling audio. You can see the
nice book.
Unboxing of the first of my books. And the whole point was to say, "Hey, Tip-Sters, can you please keep a good thought for me when I try this new step in my life?" So
you've got this. Good job.
I don't know about that, baby. I don't know.
Listen, no matter what comes of it, taking these steps forward is impressive. It's good. Good on you for pushing in a direction, for pushing forward. I don't know if it's. I don't know. I don't know if being a crime analyst is really going to be for you. I don't know if that's actually a gig that you want, but and in recent news, we've kind of learned details that it might not be. But who cares? You're right. No, you're pushing forward.
I appreciate you saying that. And it's been a long 2.5 years since Mark passed away, and I have been throwing what feels to me like throwing shit against a wall.
Sure.
Trying to find something that sticks. And I had somebody say something to me yesterday. It was so beautiful and yet shocking to my system and meant the world to me, and will probably help me get through this, because Joshua knows I have such a hard time asking for help. And it's been difficult for me to keep remembering that Mark is still supporting me from the other side. And absolutely. I have a hard time with all of that. And I want to be a person that supports herself. So I had someone say something this week that was very beautiful to me when I said, I'm taking this class and I'm a little iffy on it because it seems kind of, a little bit, sometimes it seems a little janky, and I'm hoping it'll come together. And I don't, all the things that Joshua said, we don't know that this is going to be, sure. I don't see this as a solution. I see it as a tool.
Yeah.
Another tool to maybe help me get the kind of, job I want.
Sure.
And this person said to me, who doesn't even know me that well, she just sort of said it. Sometimes I feel like people are an open channel. Mm-hmm. They just say stuff. And she said, I feel like this is the time for you to accept help and not take crappy jobs that, and I'm like, wait, what? It was like she's reading my brain.
Oh, just out of nowhere, she talked about crappy. Okay.
She said, this is not the time for you to take crappy jobs because you think you need to bring money in. And I'm just sitting here with my mouth open. And she said, besides, I love this class for you. I mean, you could probably teach it.
Absolutely. I agree.
Because Joshua and I have talked about, crime analysts and crime analysts. And basically, it's what, a lot of podcast hosts do, whether absolutely. They know it or not. They help assist detectives.
Right. Yeah. And this is going to give you more of a foundation of that. This is going to help you meet some people. This is going to hand you a
that's exactly what she said too.
Certificate of the thing that you already know how to do. Right. So now you got a piece of paper that says it. And is it going to be the solution? Maybe not. Who knows? But
I look at it as a tool.
It's
in my
definitely
tool
a step forward.
Yes, that's exactly. That's so funny. That's exactly what she said.
Yeah,
she said, I think you're going to meet people, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, if they don't have the teachers yet, like you said, for sections
several of them,
3 through 6 or whatever.
Right.
Well, who knows who they're going to be?
Right.
Somebody from this department or this thing, and
it's a lot of things I'm not particularly interested in, like financial crimes, and
sure.
But to me, it's boiled down to the ability to look on the World Wide Web and find information, people, things. And some of it might be, like footwork, which I'd be thrilled to do. But so I sent Joshua the meme that came with the thing saying, hey, your books are ready at the bookstore. And it was like supplies you might need, an old-fashioned composition book, a pen, and a calculator.
And I'm abacus.
Like, right. What aisle is the protractor?
Keeper.
Yeah. What aisle's the protractor? And Josh was like, hey, I got that old-fashioned thing with the skier. And I'm like, the peachy folder. Because Mark Humphreys went on a rabid search for peachy folders, and he got them. I got him a peachy t-shirt.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
They came back for a bit.
Maybe.
Like somebody like acquired the trademark, whatever design, and started making them again.
Okay.
For a bit, like maybe 5 years ago, 10 years ago, something.
Well, he was like rabid. So I got him a peachy t-shirt.
Nice.
I don't even know what those fucking things are. I think it is regional. We talked about that.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering.
Mark's a California boy and you're a California boy.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of it. He was like, like a peachy folder. And I go, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I had no idea. I mean, I had a Trapper Keeper.
Okay.
That, possibly had like a Lisa Frank design on the front with like, very vibrant colors. But anyway, I'm just saying.
Lisa Frank, and then like you drew in the extra like murdery bits and skulls and stuff.
It was like unicorns and stuff. You shut up. You shut up right now. Very vibrant skulls. No, you stop that right now. All right. So besides Joshua being the hammer of witches, he had sent me an article, and I had sort of had a cursory knowledge, but I sure didn't know all of the details until he said it to me. And he said, have you seen this? And he was like, shocked and dismayed. And I was like, oh, it's worse than I really knew about. And that is the botched executions in the state of Alabama. Now, I know a few people from Alabama, and they're, good, decent people. And I hate when people put that thing on southern states. I mean, I'm from Kentucky. My mother sold real estate. She did not work in a coal mine. I have never slept with a member of my family that you know of. And most of the time I wear shoes. But, and these are my teeth. I don't know if you can hear it. Yeah, those are mine. They're mine. They're not fake. Okay. So, I mean, dentures or whatever. Sure. So, yeah, I hate when people say, it's a southern bullshit thing. So, I'm going to read a couple things and...
that's why... Oh, okay.
What?
Like the people are saying that they botched these executions because
Well, it's because it's
there's Southern
like
people running
a
it.
backward medieval
Oh boy.
state.
Okay.
And, that's just kind of, yeah. Anyway, so.
No, there's morons everywhere. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. What Joshua sent me was from EJI.org. Is that like a justice thing, you think? It was just an article you saw.
Yeah, it was. I think it was the one that I was looking at that moment and said, "Oh, here."
And this one, I mean, I thought, okay, one is plenty, one is too many. And then that Joshua sent me, I was like, holy shit. And it sort of outlines things. So I'm going to read some things from this article from EJI. Alabama remains an outlier in its continued use of the death penalty. And so the nation's death penalty has declined in 2023, and it's the 9th consecutive year with fewer than 30 people executed and fewer than 50 people sentenced to death. But Alabama imposed 3 of 2023's death sentences. 2 of the 3 were sentenced to death. This is the part that is so odd to me, and I wish I were more of a legal eagle and I knew more, but 2 of the 3 were sentenced to death, even though jurors did not agree that the death sentence was appropriate. The judge did.
Oh, wow.
2 of these death sentences were 11-1, not in favor of the death penalty of life in prison, and the judge overruled that.
Oh, geez.
I know. I mean,
okay.
We just don't see that often. I know that the judge is the final.
Sure, absolutely.
But we just don't see that often,
Wow. Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, judges are they're it's like a political thing that happens. So it's possible somebody didn't want to be seen as soft or whatever.
Oh, interesting. It could have been an election thing.
Yeah, because I don't know. It depends. I think it depends on the region. Some are elected, some are appointed.
Yeah.
Some have lifetime appointments. Some have.
Wow, but, like this, Superior Court or whatever. It's
right.
Frightening.
Yeah. But there's still like
Supreme Court.
Some of them are. I mean, even the appointed ones, you want your state senator to look good on you,
Right.
Like it's still a political thing.
You're right. I had never thought about that. I always think of those things being separate, being in the judicial system and political, but you're absolutely right. They're enmeshed in ways I don't want to know.
Yeah.
Because I was like, how could 2 judges overrule 12 jurors where 11 of the 12? I don't get that. Yeah. So Alabama is one of the only outliers that allows, a death sentence to be imposed even without a unanimous agreement from all the jurors. Until Florida changed its law earlier in 2023, Alabama was the only state that allowed a person to be condemned to death without a unanimous jury vote. So I guess Florida has swung the other way. Alabama put to death 2 of the 24 people who were executed in 2023. Both men were executed despite the fact that all of the jurors did not agree. And this is a fact that would bar the death penalty in almost every other state. Alabama stands out as the state with the worst record of failed and botched executions, which is what Joshua sent to me.
God, yeah.
That is the part that makes me ill. There was a multi-hour execution of Joe James, and then a failed attempt to execute Alan Miller, and then Kenneth Eugene Smith in 2022. And the one we're going to talk about is Kenneth Eugene Smith. It's a botched execution. The idea of this makes me ill. And this man killed a woman.
Right.
And he spent 35 years in prison and seemed contrite. And I'm not saying he should have been let out. I don't have the answer. All I'm saying is I know Joshua has a very informed and passionate opinion, and I have been someone who has been swayed because when I first started this podcast, the idea that someone could kill someone and not pay somehow made me so upset. But then, a very light sentence or not pay in something that would pain you as much as the family that's left to be pained. And I'll tell you, the biggest thing that changed my mind was Mark Humphreys, who, a legal eagle. The man worked in the law field for the large part of his adult life. And he said, I don't believe in the death penalty. And I was like, can you tell me why? If someone, and I said, look, I understand there's way more people who have been put to death that are innocent than I can imagine. And that makes me ill.
Right.
But, and even if I was like, so what if someone confesses and said, yeah, I did it. Can you put them to death? And he was like, no. And I was like, why? And he said, because what if they're mentally ill?
Sure.
Or what if there isn't enough, empirical evidence? And I was like, well, son of a bitch. So I have changed. I don't like the idea of taxpayers housing, feeding, clothing, extending the life of someone who took someone else's life. I don't like that at all. I also don't have another answer.
Sure.
And that is better in my mind than killing them. And that is much better than this.
So, okay, wait, let me, in your view, a lifetime in prison, sentenced to life, or carrying out a lifetime prison sentence is a better prospect than the state issuing the death penalty.
Yes.
Okay.
Putting someone to death, whether we know there's absolutely no way that anyone else could have done it, or like in most death penalty cases, we don't know for sure.
Sure.
It's just that a jury of your peers found you guilty, and then this is one of the things that could happen to you.
Yeah.
It's like, it took me a long time, probably junior high, before someone explained to me the, hypocrisy of the Salem witch trials. So you have a trial, you're like, well, if she floats, then she's a witch, and then you kill her. And then if she doesn't float, she was innocent, but then she's dead. So there's just no way to live if they think you're a witch. And, let's just be honest, women are, kind of sexy and magical. A lot of dudes probably think they're witches because they're, it involves their penises. And they are like, I didn't want to think of, Goody Smith in the carnal way, but she's a witch, obviously.
Sure. I mean, in that
I love blaming men for everything. Anyway, go ahead.
Well,
more like penises.
Yeah. When we're talking about witch hunting, it is a patriarchal kind of keeping the patriarchy in a set place, because witches, women who are empowered, I should say it like this, women who are empowered upset that patriarchy. And it's not about is she working for the devil, is she something, whatever. Right. It's about, okay, this balance of power is in danger.
Well, that's a beautiful way to phrase it. And I mean, it was like, probably, I think it was 8th grade when I remember reading it. I was like, wait a minute, there's no way to live.
Yeah, no.
Wait, if you float, you're a witch, and if you drown, you're dead. But if you're a witch, and they put you to death anyway, and then wait a minute, it was just like, is this wholesale sanction of women murder?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Oh. And the short answer, Melissa, is yes. Yeah. It was
absolutely
fascinating to me, and it just feels sometimes, and I get that our justice system, God bless it, is not perfect. I will also tell you it's pretty fucking good when compared to a lot of other countries.
Sure.
I will also, and I've said this 100,000 times, 5 or 6 times on this podcast, that Canada does something right and that they have professional jury pools.
Right.
The jury system, I don't think it works, and I want it to work. And I'll tell you that most people think a jury of your peers that here's this is hard for me to say, and without sounding really pompous, I believe that man is inherently good. I believe that men and women impaneled on a jury want to do the right thing. Nobody wants to be responsible for executing someone who's innocent. They want to do the right thing. Mm-hmm. Does that mean that they have the tools and understanding to make a decision like that? I don't think so.
I agree.
Right. Professional jury pools people who know the law, understand the law. There are the things I love about a jury trial with, someone, a murder jury trial, when they send a message to the judge. Okay, so if we find them guilty of this and not this, I love that they question.
Oh, sure.
Because the law is not like, learning your, multiplication tables.
Right.
It's layered. Our jury system, our judicial system is layered. So having somebody, professional jury polls. Also, I'm not saying that is the be all to end all, because you could get people who could be influenced or paid or whatever.
Right.
I just think it's something that could be looked at for our country.
Absolutely.
So and then we get to putting people to death and it doesn't work.
Yeah,
we've all heard about, it's like, oh, we couldn't find his vein. Well, that's your job,
Carter.
Yeah. I when I hear about what happened to Kenneth Eugene Smith, I'm like, and what they implemented, which is for him to breathe nitrogen gas, which he did January 25th of 2024. But I'm going to read some other things first, because before we get to what actually happened to him, because this is something that when we talk about people who take other people's lives, to me, this is a discussion we need to have as human beings.
Okay.
So the majority of the states have abolished the death penalty or stopped executions. Only a small handful of states continue to use the death penalty as of 2023. The number of states conducting executions, which is 5, and imposing death sentences, which is 7, matched record lows in 2023.
So 2 states are sentencing people to death even though they know they're not going to carry it out? Is that what?
Maybe they're waiting for things to swing.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. 3 people were exonerated in 2023 with DNA. I mean, we don't even have time to talk about
getting it wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So a total of 195 people have been exonerated after being sentenced to death.
Yeah.
Since the death penalty era came into,
Yeah, and that's my biggest hang up is, that
was Mark's too.
I don't trust this. I don't trust this system to fill the proper potholes. Am I really going to trust it with people's lives?
Right. That's. I don't know how many times you've said that. You said, I don't trust the judicial system to write a proper ticket.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, you know what? He's right.
Yeah.
And how do we trust them with someone's life who maybe didn't have the money or the intelligence to have the proper representation? Right. I mean, the whole thing just makes me want to vomit. And we all know that there have been several cases where, it's gotten lots of media attention from famous people, as if that matters. But, people who have, studied the law more than me. But there's been a lot of unprecedented support from state lawmakers, prosecutors, judges. It's all of this kind of talking about this, which is the best thing I think we can do, has found that now more Americans than ever believe the death penalty is applied unfairly. It's the first time that it has swung where, that's kind of amazing if you ask me. I mean, the idea that there's even a death penalty at all is now it's such a big topic in my brain that, it brings me a little bit of joy knowing that people in America now more than ever believe that it's, unfair.
Right.
So Kenneth Eugene Smith, he went through a botched execution in 2022 for the murder of Elizabeth Dorleen Sennett. In 1988, he was convicted of killing her, and the jury had thought that her husband, a pastor, had paid Kenneth Eugene Smith to kill her. 11-1 jurors sentenced him to life in prison with no possibility of parole. The judge overruled that and ordered Kenneth Eugene Smith to be executed. Alabama at the time prohibited judges from overriding juries in capital murder cases, but then in that was actually, I'm sorry, Alabama prohibited judges from overriding juries in future capital murder cases, but that was in 2017. So he was, grandfathered in.
Okay.
Yeah. So this made me happy that it's no longer allowed anywhere in the United States that a judge can overrule a jury if it's something like 11-1.
If it's
if it's not 12.
Got it.
Right. So what Alabama has proposed or did propose was nitrogen hypoxia, the breathing of high concentrations of nitrogen that starves a person of oxygen until they die. They eventually die. So it happens, I guess, sometimes accidentally. So when Joshua first sent me this, I'm like, do you mean like, Dennis, what's his name in Blue Velvet? And he's like, no, sweet summer child.
I think it's a different that's
nitrous.
That's nitrous oxide
that they use in the dentist's office.
That's
right?
laughing gas. Yeah.
Right. I was like, well, I don't know why that's a problem. It'd be terrible if you laughed your way to your death, right?
I suppose it'd be a pleasant way to die.
I guess.
More pleasant than sitting for hours while they tried to find a vein.
This article written by this is from the New York Times. This article written by Bernard Harcourt. He's a professor of law and political theory at Columbia. And he began representing people on Alabama's death row pro bono, and he continues to represent people sentenced to death and life imprisonment without parole because this is obviously his mission. So he said there's no known use of nitrogen hypoxia as a method of execution. And based on his research, there's no firsthand experience of, what's the likelihood of agony or suffering,
How would you get firsthand experience about putting someone to death?
Dennis, what's his name?
Wouldn't all
Blue Velvet? I don't know. Do you go, all right, so you're dying. So how do you feel?
How do you feel as you're dying?
How are you feeling?
Like, okay, you're dead.
Right.
How did that feel? Like, what?
Yeah. How did that feel? Look, before you go, right, once for okay, two for no.
I think firsthand accounts. I don't know.
Right.
That.
Yeah. So, these kind of things are not conducted in like pristine conditions, It's like a lot of times there's somebody trying to get it overturned. You don't know what's going on. It's last minute. And it's like, well, bring them into the chamber or whatever. It's,
okay.
There's a lot of hurry up and wait. And, there's, it could be, I hate to say the word executioner. It could be, okay. It could be an executioner, but it could be like, not a medical doctor. It could be someone who's like moonlighting as the nitrogen oxide guy or whatever. I know there's so much, and this is not, in my mind, this is not exactly a great argument, but I'm going to say it. Professor Harcourt says there's a lot of psychological and emotional pressure on the prison staff members.
Sure.
A lot of these things are done, in the middle of the night. How many times have we seen, it's like people outside protesting with candles. Somebody gets, executed at midnight. Everything is a bad situation. I can't think of a good one.
No.
But I get what he's saying. I mean, in his words, there's a group, an American Veterinary Medical Association, that says, nitrogen gas is unacceptable for animals other than chickens and turkeys.
Oh, okay. So it is used on animals?
I guess chickens and turkeys.
I mean, okay.
I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I know how I have seen most of the animals that I have seen butchered have been in like crazy, gruesome ways.
Oh gosh.
Because it was a thing.
Okay.
But, yeah, I don't know how they do it regularly. But okay, so is that a regular thing, or is that just sometimes they do?
I don't know
chickens and turkeys that way.
I don't know how poultry farms work.
Yeah, I don't. Okay, I don't either.
Professor Harcourt said that 3 of the 6 known failed executions since 1946 have taken place in Alabama, and all of those have occurred since 2018. So as time goes on and we are, more technologically advanced, they keep messing up
We're getting worse
executions.
at it.
Yeah, well, Alabama is.
I don't know. I didn't even think of that part before you just said how hard it is on the prison staff. You're talking about these botched executions were going to be lethal injection. Mm-hmm. So you got a phlebotomist coming in
right
to tap a vein and can't find a vein. I think that's the botched part. Yeah. Right? I mean, at first I was just thinking about the torture of that for the convict. But God, that's got to be torture on the phlebotomist too, and all the staff that are around trying, and you're really, oh God, you're trying hard to do your job right, but on the other side of it, knowing you're taking someone's life, like what kind of back and forth has to be going on in your psyche with that?
I can't imagine being what's called an executioner, but I can tell you, Attorney Harcourt said Alabama spent in 2018 3 hours jabbing my client Doyle Lee Ham's groin, ankles, and shin before they released him from the gurney, and he stumbled off in excruciating pain. Now here's the kicker. He was suffering from terminal cancer and his veins were compromised. Needling his groin during several attempts to reach a femoral vein, they hit his bladder.
Oh my God.
A large amount of blood soaked the gurney. He survived, but ended up dying of cancer in prison. You're dying of terminal cancer. Why don't you just let that be your death sentence? That is 2018.
Jesus.
Right. The Alabama execution team effectively tortured Alan Eugene Miller in September of 2022. They agreed not to use lethal injection to execute him, and now he awaits for the nitrogen hypoxia. I mean, this attorney is calling them horrors, and I understand. I did look for what was the outcome of Kenneth Eugene Smith's execution, and I showed Joshua the only information that the state of Alabama released was just the state attorney general's office declined Friday to discuss at what time the nitrogen gas began flowing or at what time a monitor connected to Smith during the execution showed his heart had stopped beating. His official time of death, he was pronounced dead at 8:25 p.m. That is the only thing they said. We don't know how long he laid there, I have to say, Justice Harry Blackmun from Alabama said that figure something out and stop tinkering with the machinery of death. I think that's an interesting, but I mean, what's the answer? I mean,
I don't know. I mean, it sounds like the answer for this might be the gas that they used and succeeded in whatever. The larger answer is, stop the government from murdering people.
That was my favorite part.
The larger answer is let's reform. Let's do a huge reform all the way through the justice system and the rehabilitation system, and let's go back to the drawing board on all of this and figure something else out.
That's what you said that made me stop. I was like, yeah, they need to figure out something else. And you sort of were kidding, but you said, or stop killing people. And I was like, okay, I get it.
Yeah.
So the 8th Amendment says that, these things are cruel and unusual punishments. And like the point you brought up, how do you have any kind of a answer about how nitrogen, is, if it's cruel and unusual, because who's going to come back and tell you?
Right.
So that's kind of a big deal. I get that. So this is the part that kills me right here. This is a picture of Kenneth Eugene Smith. And when someone is shown to you to be a human being. Look at that smile.
Yeah.
Could you imagine killing that person? Because
No.
I sure the fuck can't.
No, and it's not even like you're somewhere else, casting a vote or something. We're talking about a team that's in the room actively doing it. There's doctors and nurses and staff and
Jailers
jailers.
and
Yeah. There's a whole team of people in that room, and their job is counter to what they signed up for.
Right.
Most of them, I mean,
right.
Healthcare professionals signed up to help people's health.
Right.
That's the reason they got into it in the first place.
To try and ward off things like this.
Right. And they're doing it, they're doing backwards of that.
Right. Right.
I mean,
going against their Hippocratic oath.
Hippocrates would not dig this.
Right. Well, that's a maybe that should be their, like a bumper sticker.
Sure.
Hey, Alabama, Hippocrates would not dig this.
Yeah.
So this picture of Kenneth Eugene Smith, he just looks like your average guy, little round face, and he knew what it felt like. He was in what they call the death cell, 20 feet from the death chamber. He had been, in November 2022, he had been given his last meal. He had been given his last rites. He said goodbye to his mother and his grandson. He was taken to the death chamber where he spent 4 hours on a gurney, and they couldn't find a vein.
Jesus.
So they let him out, and 14 months later, he's, back in the death cell, and he's going to go through it again, except this time the protocol was different. He's 58 now, and it's like it's even rejected by veterinarians as euthanasia for most animals, like we said.
Wow.
I know. So in the week before his execution, Kenneth Eugene Smith was contacted by the Guardian, and he got a 15-minute phone call. And it's an unusual thing to talk to an execution survivor, and he's, going through it again. And the reporter said, "Have you prepared yourself again for this?" And he said, "I'm not ready for that. Not in any kind of way. I'm just not ready, brother."
Jeez.
The word brother just fucking leveled me.
Yeah.
Like we're all brothers and sisters.
We're here.
Yeah. So after his first failed execution, he was diagnosed with PTSD and, was on a cocktail of medications, and he also has migraines. The prison psychiatrist said he suffered from insomnia, anxiety, depression, severe trauma. Sure, that makes sense. He said he was unable to sleep because of frequent nightmares and the what if games that he played in the middle of the night, like, what if it happens again? He said one of his overwhelming nightmares was that he is once again escorted back into the death chamber because it didn't work again.
Yeah, that's like the definition of cruel and unusual.
I think so too. I'm with you.
Marching him to his death and then again. Not, and then doing it again
14 months later.
Yeah.
So he spent the last 14 months being very sick to his stomach. He throws up most days. The nurse in the infirmary says it's stress. He has this unusual way of conveying the trauma upon trauma to which he's being subjected. They haven't given me a chance to heal. I'm suffering from the first execution. Now we're doing it again. They won't even let me have the diagnosis of PTSD. This is an ongoing stress disorder.
God.
Any person who did this would be considered a monster, but when the government does it, well, he's right. So, March 18th of 1988, the pastor's wife, Elizabeth Sennett, was stabbed to death in her home in Alabama. A week later, her husband killed himself, Charles Sennett, after detectives started to focus on the fact that he'd been having an affair, was deeply in debt, and had taken out a large insurance policy on his wife.
Oh, geez.
Kenneth Eugene Smith was one of the two people hired through an intermediary to murder Elizabeth Sennett, and they were each paid $1,000. At the trial, Smith admitted to having agreed to rough up Elizabeth Sennett, but denied intending to kill her. The jury voted 11-1 to give him a life sentence, but they were overruled by the judge who imposed the death sentence. How does he look back on his crime now? I wish I'd done things differently. 1 second, 1 moment in a man's life. And that's my only incident. I have not had any incident with officers, not a single fight with inmates. I've been in here 31 years. Sorry. I've been in here 35 years. Violence is not who I am. Many people in Alabama, obviously, and people across the U.S. believe that, he's getting what he deserves because of what he did. And he says, I've been in prison for 35 years. I've been punished. I have not gone unpunished. I have suffered doing this, and so has my family. He's married, kids, grandkids. It's just, I can't even.
For $1,000
to kill a woman.
I gotta wonder where he was in his life where he agreed
right
for $1,000. Like, how rock bottom do you got to be for somebody to say, "Hey, I'll give you $1,000 to kill my wife,"
right?
Or, well, through an intermediary, but you were scrounging. He was scrounging at that point,
I'm
where
sure.
$1,000 would have been
but
the difference. And
you can't take.
God,
I'm sorry, but you can't take money to kill someone.
no,
I'm not
I
giving
get
that
that.
an out. No,
I don't mean an all the way out.
right.
This
is not Jean Valjean stealing bread from.
No, it's not. No.
It's not.
It's not an all the way out. I'm agreeing with those 11 people that
yes,
that a punishment was necessary for sure. But
yes, I'm agreeing with you in that this is cruel and unusual.
Yeah.
He said, I'm trying not to think about it. I'm not going to read too much. I don't know how this is going to go, but I've read that you can throw up in the mask. And if I do, no one's going to help me and I'll drown in my own vomit. And my wife will have to watch it. A federal judge described the, mask as industrial grade continuous flow supplied air respirator mask with an adjustable 5-point harness system and a pliable double flange rubber seal that would tightly fit and hold the mask over the entirety of the wearer's face, including eyes, nose, mouth, and chin. The danger, critics have warned, is if the seal is not perfect, oxygen could seep in the mask and lead to a prolonged and distressing death. Now, he says, Kenneth Eugene Smith said, I'm not going to participate. If, I'm not going to grab the mask and help them put it on. I'm not going to help them, which I'm glad to know he's not. And he says, what happened in November of 2022 when they tried to stick a giant needle under his collarbone. He was screaming in excruciating pain. And a warden tightly gripped his head and leaned over him and said, relax, this is for your own good.
Jesus.
Mm-hmm. What he worried about most was saying goodbye for the second time to those he loves the most. His wife, Deanna, she would be there to witness. His 78-year-old mother and his 12-year-old grandson, Crimson, who's named after the University of Alabama's football team. This is so hard. I'm putting them through this again, and I don't know how they do it. I've got a tough bunch who love me. My family is amazing, and somehow we'll get through it. This is kind of a lovely thing that he said when the 15 minutes is almost up for the interview. The reporter squeezes in. The reporter is Betsy Reed. She squeezes in one last question. If you had a chance to say something to people at large, what would it be? He said, you know what? I would say leave room for mercy.
Yeah, wow.
This doesn't exist in Alabama. Mercy doesn't really exist in this country when it comes to difficult situations like mine. Wow. So I know we're not going to come to any answers.
No.
But I am really grateful that Joshua is here today because you're also one of the reasons that, I made up my mind before I even met you because of Mark, but, the way you think and feel and voice it has been a great help to me too.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. I don't know. it's hard because so many things are. It's not black and white.
There isn't. Yeah.
There's layers. There's gray areas.
Absolutely.
No, did he murdered a woman?
Mm-hmm.
He
and stabbed. I mean, that's a very bad way to go. Also,
Oh yeah. No, I mean,
cops say they'd much rather be shot than stabbed.
Yeah. How long does it take to die from a stab wound?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
and it's painful.
And it's
your body's not in shock.
He inflicted pain and suffering and torture onto a random woman, an innocent woman.
Had a shitty minister husband who was cheating on her, wanted insurance money, and was deeply in debt. He should have been the one. Thank God he killed himself so we don't have to pay for him. But he should, if there was someone to be put to death, it's the mastermind. Sure. But I get it. We're not putting people to death here. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm just saying, yes. Was that okay? Absolutely not. What he did within the bounds of... No, it was not okay. And that's agreed upon, and he doesn't deny doing it, or it was proven by a jury that he did it beyond a reasonable doubt. The other side of this gray area is, everything you just described is torture. That's not just turning off a switch and putting somebody to death.
No,
it's torturing him. It was torturous to his family.
Right.
I mean, it was torturous to all of the people involved. Yeah. I mean,
whether they admit it or not, I'm sure.
The warden who leaned over him and said, "It's for your own good.
Relax."
That's a projection from his own. He's watching his fellow human being suffering in agony, being tortured.
He doesn't want to be a part of it.
See that. He doesn't want to be he doesn't want to witness it. He doesn't want to be a part of it.
The cause of it, even.
Yeah. And no, that was a paternal kind of thing to say in the absence of anything
else you can say.
Nothing.
You're right.
I mean,
and I don't want to boil this down to something so, cliched, but in this case, two wrongs absolutely do not make a right.
No.
There's no right here.
No.
There's no winning. I will also tell you something that makes me even more convinced that this is not the thing. I imagine you could talk to some people whose family members are murdered and they've, witnessed the execution of that murderer. And they've been like, yeah, that's great. I will be honest with you. I have not heard one. Everything I've heard is that didn't make me feel any better.
No, I can't imagine.
There's no closure. That did not, I thought it would make me feel better. I thought I would feel some sort of justice. No, it didn't make me feel any better.
No, you don't get your daughter or son or mother or father or brother or sister. You don't get them back.
Yeah.
No.
If you, let's say the family member of Elizabeth Sennett, because her husband killed himself, you can be like, well, good. He did that. He killed himself and I didn't have to witness it or participate. Oh. But if you have to go through the years of legal battles and show up at court and be part of, and as you say, witness to the ebbing out of a life of another fellow human being, that's just not going to make you feel better. That's not going to bring you any, and the most important thing you said, it's not going to bring your loved one back.
No, it's not going to bring him back. And okay, so I think part of this whole discussion that hasn't come up yet is the idea that having penalties, having very big penalties, are then a deterrent for other people committing crimes. And I don't think that that's actually true. I don't have numbers. I don't have cases, but I've heard people talk about that when it comes to committing a crime, the possible penalties of it aren't in the deciding factors of whether or not any people are going to commit a crime.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So it doesn't actually deter.
Right. Okay. At first I wasn't getting what you're saying. I get it now.
like, oh, well, I live in a state that has the death penalty.
Mm-hmm. Maybe or the three strikes law.
Maybe I shouldn't murder my third person.
Right.
No, right. I don't think that thought process actually exists.
I think you're right. I mean, I think we found out in the state of California, the three strikes law does not work.
Yeah.
Too many people, were given huge sentences for nonviolent crimes, and people, because what they committed were felonies. And I still can't believe, Daniel Sarazan got, 11 years for killing his uncle Will Sarazan and had already served 3. So he's going to do 8, which will be cut down to probably 4.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Mm-hmm. That's like stealing a car.
Right. Right.
Not a life. So I don't have an answer.
I don't either. Yeah.
I know we don't have an answer, but I can tell you who I think are the most incredibly brilliant people are the Tip-Sters.
Yeah.
And I know you don't have the answer, but I'm always open to hearing the opinion of the Tip-Sters, especially Miranda, who thinks that Joshua's pretty but has the memory of a goldfish. That's a great opinion. So if you have an opinion like that, if you would like to
slide right into my DMs.
If you would like to give us a tip on a missing person or an unsolved homicide, or you just want to suggest a case, please call us at 832-TIPSTER. That's 832-847-7837. You can email us at jttipsters@gmail.com. And you can always find us on any of our social media platforms. Just the Tipsters Facebook page, at JT Tipsters on Instagram, at JT Tipsters Pod on Twitter, and more cowbell.
If you would like to support this podcast and get early access and other cool murderous swag, go to patreon.com/justthetipsters.